Alright, what's going on, you cool Cobras? This is the first inaugural episode of what I've decided to call King Cobra's Kitchen Recreations, where basically I'm going to try to take things that King Cobra's made in the past and make them better and maybe, if we're lucky, even palatable. Today we're going to be starting with the fiery fish pizza. I was really hoping that wasn't going to be the one that you guys picked first, but you know, it'll set a nice precedent for the show, so it's not really that much of an issue. Basically, just to get everybody on the same page, like what I plan to do here, just so no one's, you know, thinking that I'm going to be doing one thing and I do something else or whatever. I'm not looking to try to make exactly what Josh made and then eat it and be like, oh, it's fucking gross, because obviously we know it's going to be gross, because Josh has no idea what he's doing, as much as he might have you fooled that he does. I'm going to basically try to find ingredients that he used or ingredients that I can make or approximate that would kind of represent what he made in a way that makes it a little bit more palatable and less disgusting in general. So right in front of me, I'm looking at them all prepped out. I've got all my ingredients. We'll go over that in a second. That's one of my biggest problems with Josh in general, is he doesn't really do any prep and he kind of just tries to show it, like throw everything together all at once. Excuse me. So first and foremost, like, big shout out to the user Gothic King Oprah. Super big help. He gave me the whole list of ingredients for this. Probably would have missed a couple things if it weren't for him, because I would have been impatiently skipping through the video myself. So Gothic King Oprah, thank you for contributing. I got a list of everything you put in there on here, and then after I read this off, I'm going to show you what I've got and what I'm going to do to try to recreate it, and talk about the dish a little bit before we go over that as well. So first and foremost, the dough, I'm using store-bought dough just like he did. I wish that weren't the case. You know, always better to make your own dough or whatever, but to be honest with you, I mean, for this, I'm not going to spend the time, you know, weighing out approximate grams of yeast and water and olive oil and shit like that to try to make a good pizza crust to put what I'm going to put on it. So, got store-bought pizza dough. I've got it in a container here with plastic wrap over it on a warm oven, having it re-proof just to give it a little bit more body and a, you know, kind of more of that yeasty taste, rather than taking it straight out of the refrigerator and using it. He used, I mean, so many different hot sauces, obviously. I'll go over that in a sec. Powdered peppers. Gothic King Oprah mentioned that he had, like, powdered ghost pepper and shit like that. I'm not going to be using those. I'm going to be using, like, regular powdered peppers that you would find in your grocery store, your spice rack, being, you know, cayenne pepper, chili powder, that sort of shit. Paprika. They're all, you know, spicy powdered peppers, but it's not things I gotta pay $13 for on Amazon and wait for it to get to my door. So I'm gonna be using those. He used Taco Bell hot sauces. I've got those right there. There was a Taco Bell down the road. It wasn't hard to source. Tomato sauce, just cheap jarred tomato sauce again. If I were trying to make like a really nice pizza, I would make my own, but I'm not trying to make that, and I'm gonna be mixing it with other sauces. So I mean, hot sauce, powdered peppers, taco sauce, and tomato sauce, or I guess what makes up the sauce on this pizza. He's got his mozzarella, which I've actually got in the freezer firming up so we could dice it a little bit easier here in a sec. It's fresh mozzarella that I'm using. I'm not going to be using shredded mozzarella with the cornstarch on it that doesn't really melt or whatever. Pepperoni and bacon, both, I mean, that's really not an issue. You know, both of those are used widely on pizza, and you can use them, you know, whatever. And then he had also, these last two are going to be like the most kind of wild card ingredients. He had Arby's curly fries and Doritos on it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to incorporate those here in just a second. So just a few, you know, notes I have right off the bat about this, things I'm worried about, things that I think are going to be challenging or whatever. First and foremost, the fact that this is like 3 different types of proteins that all taste kind of different. If you've never had sardines, I mean, think of like the stereotypical fish taste that people talk about, and they're like, oh, I don't like when things are fishy. That's what they taste like. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's plenty of uses for them and whatnot. I don't think that this is one of them, especially because most pizza places use anchovies instead of sardines. I wouldn't expect him to know that. But I don't know. Also, I feel like this could also kind of work out a little bit in the fact that it's just got salty and sweet and spicy. I mean, you know, Cobra made it, but it's kind of just like stoner food. It's exactly what you would imagine like a drunk, stoned college kid would come make in his dorm room out of shit that he had, and then like eat half of and then pass out and have terrible diarrhea the next day, much like Josh does. You know, all that being said, I think it could be done well if it's done right. One of my biggest issues with Josh is that he doesn't do his prep. I may have already mentioned that. I've already prepped everything out. One thing that a lot of people mention is that, like in a lot of the comments on his videos, the ones that he puts up, it'll say like, in the comments, people will be like, you know, less really is more, which is 1000% true. It's something that's always I'm thinking when he's making his shit, you know, 7 inches tall, ball of dough with rancid shit inside of it. You know what, here, let's just look at the ingredients. Right, so here we are, new angle, a little bit Cobra-esque. I'm just gonna go over the ingredients real quick and then just do a little bit of real quick prep for things that I haven't done yet, that I just wanted to show on camera so I could show rather than try to explain. Here I've got the dough that I was talking about. It's just probably a 6 or 8 ounce portion of dough that I've had sitting here in a little bit of oil on a hot surface. Not hot, warm, so it'll reproof. This is just a, you know, a little bit of the jarred tomato sauce, nothing to write home about. This is our proteins. I've got diced pepperoni right here, diced par-cooked bacon, and then diced sardines. Right? Yeah, sardines. And then another thing that I forgot to mention earlier when we were sitting down is Josh put jardinera in his as well, which on its own can be a great snack or ingredient and a couple other things, but not really sure the inspiration for King Cobra adding it to this particular dish, if he had any, if he was thinking of anything. Jardinera is just basically pickled vegetables. They don't come like this. I've minced them up so they're smaller. It's minced cauliflower, carrots, celery, a couple of different chilies, jalapeno, that sort of thing. This might be a little bit hard to recognize. This is probably the most prep intensive thing. It's not really even that intense, but this is probably the farthest from its natural state. This is actually a russet potato that I've run through a microplane, which for all intents and purposes is just like a real small cheese grater. And that's going to be my substitution for our Arby's fries. Arby's fries seasoning, you can look it up online, is basically just seasoning salt with a couple of other spices like probably some cumin, red pepper, that sort of thing. Here's our Doritos. I've crushed them up in a bag here. The reason everything's crushed up and minced really small is what I was mentioning before the cut, which is less is more, and I'm hoping to use a small amount of every ingredient, considering he has, you know, 77 different ingredients he puts on everything, in order to get everything on there without it being stacked a mile high or being ridiculously, you know, hard to eat or mushy or anything like that. Because one thing that I'm really looking for when I eat a pizza is a crispy crust, and having a bunch of jarred pickled shit and wet potatoes and fucking canned fish and everything is gonna make for a soggy crust, and we don't want that. So first and foremost, I'm going to mix our sauces so we have that ready. And what I'm gonna do for that is probably the only thing that can make this even a little bit palatable is I'm gonna take some tomato sauce, add a bit of the other sauces to it, and mix it, and just use that as our base. It's gonna taste mostly like a regular sauce that you would have on a pizza, but it's gonna taste a little bit more, you know, a little bit more Josh inspired, a little bit more King Cobra Kitchen inspired. So the other thing is that he also uses his signature Swampadelic brand hot sauce. I'm not gonna use that either. I've got a collection of different sauces here that are all different kinds of whatever. I'm just gonna be using these. I'm not really a sauce guy. That being said, I will keep like a bottle of Crystals on hand or whatever. I don't want to be mixing dried peppers into vinegar and then letting it ferment or anything like that. So I'm gonna be adding these here. We've got regular red chili hot sauce. I'm gonna add that. I've got a little bit of jalapeno sauce that's gonna help kind of make the bridge between the sauce and the toppings with the giardiniera having jalapenos in it. It immediately turned like this weird reddish brown color. It doesn't smell awesome. It smells exactly like Taco Bell hot sauce does. Really, it just tastes like pizza sauce that's really spicy on the back end. It's actually making my head sweat. If Swampadelic's hotter than, like, you know, regular Fire and Diablo hot sauce, then Josh might have had a reason to throw up. I am gonna add a little bit of cayenne pepper and Mexican chili powder. Be a little bit of a dry spice flavor, which is also, we're gonna use these for our French fry substitution here as well. So, you know, we're gonna have a couple of strong themes all throughout that are gonna, yeah, I'm basically gonna leave that the way that it is. It tastes exactly how I would want it to taste if I were to try to eat something like this. It's like spicy pizza sauce with some peppery low notes. Let's just add some spices to this so we can break it up and have it all prepped out. Most of the flavoring on this fries is seasoning salt. So it's actually really good to have on hand. It's good on shit like chicken, for anybody who doesn't know. I'm gonna add a little bit chili powder, just a tiny bit of cumin. I don't want to cross the barrier into like Mexican food territory with the cumin flavor. And then a little bit of red pepper, cayenne. And then we're just gonna mix this up as well. And then I'm gonna try to break this up into, you know, dry pieces. I've taken the potato, run it through a microplane, which I mentioned earlier, but I also, along with the giardiniera, added it to a dry tea towel and rinsed it out, wrung it out so it wouldn't be as wet, so I'd be able to sprinkle it. And the advantage of that is that when this goes on top of the pizza, it's gonna go on in like small clumps, and instead of just burning up or turn into like crispy, it's going to sit and then like the very edges get crispy, kind of like a latke would, and then in the middle where it's more mounded up, it's gonna be like a regular potato flavor and taste. And it actually might be good. Who knows? I don't think this entire thing is gonna be good, but I'm sure that will be fine. This is already all prepped out, like I said. I par-cooked our bacon. This is our wrung out giardiniera, and now we're gonna lay down the crust. So I've got this ripped open bag of yellow cornmeal here. I'm gonna put a generous amount down. I've got my oven preheated to 475 degrees. Josh actually kind of, you know, he's pretty close with this whole putting the oven on 420. When you're making pizza, you want it to be a hot oven because you want a quick cook. One thing I'm gonna do, that one of the biggest issues I have with Josh is that he doesn't know how to roll or spread his dough at all, and it makes it to where he doesn't have any like crust developed. He just has a big ball of shit that he shoves down his pie hole. So I'm just gonna stretch some dough out to a rough circle, applying even pressure throughout. In order to stretch out your pizza dough, I usually start with a small ball and then stretch it by hand just until I get more of a disc. For this particular type of pizza we're making, I mean, you know, as loose as you could use the term, it's going to be like a Neapolitan style pizza. One piece of equipment that Josh has that I don't is a is a pizza stone. I don't make pizza enough to really warrant buying one. I mean, Josh sure as fuck does. What I've got in the oven is just a regular non-stick frying pan with a thick bottom, and I've got it in the oven. It's been preheating in the oven at 475 for about 45 minutes now, the whole time that it took me to do my prep. So once this is all spread out, I'll reposition the camera again. You can see the construction of the pizza itself and then the final product once it's baked. Alright, so here's probably the best I'm going to be able to do, but here's our pizza crust. It's kind of thin in a couple spots, which is fine. It's not really that important. We've got a small tear here. We could just patch that up with a pinch and poke. Really, my main concern is the ingredients here. Just making sure they all get on the pizza. So I'm going to take our sauce here, probably do about 3 ounces to start. No, let's start with like 2. And then, like any other pizza, we're just going to, from the inside out, hit it with some ladle action. I'm only going to leave a very small outside section of the crust unsauced. Alright, so I've got the sauce on our pizza. I just pulled my mozzarella out of the freezer. This is a fresh mozzarella ball. It's not frozen, but it is very firm so that when I cut it, it's not just going to mush apart on me. I can get decent, you know, dices of mozzarella. I'm going to now add a little bit of this giardiniera. I'm just going to sprinkle it around in an even layer. Looking at the ingredients now, this might come out tasting pretty similar to like, you know, like kind of a supreme pizza, like one you might get from a supermarket, like a frozen one. Back home where I'm from, if you get a supreme pizza, you also get anchovies on it, so it'll be similar in that way. I'm gonna add just a small amount, since we've got so many proteins. I'm just gonna add a small amount of our, you know, small diced pepperoni here. I feel like pepperoni is going to be one of those things that kind of works against everything else. I've got our bacon here as well. Little bacon bits that's par cooked so that they'll crisp up in the oven, but they won't be burnt, rather than you know, pre-cooked bacon or anything like that. One thing also that Gothic King Oprah mentioned was that I guess Josh put uncooked bacon on his. Which seemed like a bonehead move. I doubt he baked it long enough for that ball of shit to be up to temp in the middle. And this last thing I just added here was our diced up anchovies that did, by the way, come in Louisiana hot sauce like his did. And I'm going to break these up into small chunks, place it kind of dotted around. So far, the way that it looks isn't really... It isn't terrible. I mean, it just looks like a pizza with a lot of shit on it. If you didn't tell anybody what it was, they might not be grossed out about it seeing you make it. But I think that's probably all going to change once it comes out of the oven. And when it does come out of the oven, you'll see why. So I'm about to put all of this in the oven the way that it is. And then everything else, being our Dorito dust and our additional sauces, are going to go on top as garnishes, because I don't think cooking them would really help anything. So I'm going to switch over to me pulling the hot pan out of the oven and throw the pizza in there, and then I'll get back to you once the pizza's actually cooked. So here we are with our pizza now in the really hot pan. I'm going to throw it back in the oven so the pan doesn't lose too much temperature. So now that it's in the oven, that really is going to be in there only for about 4 minutes or so. I'm going to mix up a couple of hot sauces, put them in a squeeze bottle so we can zigzag it on top. And then, yeah, I'll get back to you when that's done. So yeah, here it is. It's in all its glory, the same type of lighting Josh got in his videos and everything. Really looks like shit. I'm going to try it here in just a second, let you guys know what it tastes like. But overall, basically exactly how I expected it to look presentation-wise. But I will say this looks a lot more like a pizza than a bread bowl, you know, due to the fact that I rolled out the dough properly and whatnot. So let's give it the taste test and then we'll wrap this shit up. So after all our hard work, The dough on the bottom's got a nice crust to it. It's not like, you know, bending and folding over. There was no cheese pull. I'm not really that worried about it. I'm really just trying to hesitate so I don't have to eat this fucking thing because this is going to be so gross, but... It tastes kind of like how fish food smells. If I got this at a restaurant, I wouldn't, like, complain to the staff about it, but I for sure would not order it again. My mouth just tastes like fish now. That's, like, the main thing in this. I'm not sure how any other flavor came through when Josh made it, if any flavor came through. Adding everything in moderation didn't help. Using fresh mozzarella did not help. Really, I don't think anything really could help this. This is just an amalgamation of shit. However, there are some things that Josh has made that for sure could be made to taste good, that have good components. This just is not one of them. So yeah, I guess that's it for King Cobra's Kitchen Recreations. I'm Chef Jed, and I guess we'll talk about this in the subreddit.